Hi all, I am Mubina KM. Today I am going to discuss about a solitary human voice, except from voices from Chernobyl, the oral history of a nuclear disaster, written by Svetlana Alexievich. Svetlana Alexievich, born in Ukraine 1948. She spent her most of the days in the Soviet Union and she received the 2015 Nobel Prize in Literature for the polyphonic writings A Monument to Suffering and Courage in Our Time. The work became more unique because the actual victims are speaking here, which is very important when we record a disaster. Chernobyl disaster. Disasters are always unpredictable. It was an accident occurred on 1986 April 26 at number 4 reactor in Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It is the worst nuclear disaster in the history of cost and casualties. Explosion killed 2 engineers and it caused many burns too. An emergency operation were needed to put out the fire and also stabilize the reactor. It also affects the health of Chernobyls. The children are born with defects. The children are born with many defects. During the immediate energy response, 134 station staff and firemen were hospitalized. It is due to the acute radiation syndrome, due to the absorbing high doses of ionizing radiations. It caused genetic mutation in plants and animals also. The millions of people lived in the surrounding areas or become radioactive contaminants. The workers were also exposed. The city evacuated after the explosion and has never been inhabited. Now we are going to learn only an excerpt from the book Voices from Chernobyl, that is, a solitary human voice, which is published in 1997. It begins with the story of a young pregnant wife of the fireman Vasily Ignatенко. The voice recorded here is of Lyudmila Ignatенко. She is the wife of a deceased fireman. It describes the history through a personal representation, which makes the work very heart touching. The disasters are always unpredictable and they are untimely visitors. So, the Chernobyl disaster was such an event in Vasily's and Lyudmila's life. At the beginning, she remembers the early, most beautiful days of their marriage and the lovely and strong relationship with her husband. Her husband Vasily was a fireman at the reactor number 4 and she lived at the dormitory of the fire station. They were ordinary people. At the time when the disaster happened, she was pregnant. That night changed their life. She heard a noise from the reactor and he asked her to close the window and go back to sleep. They never thought a small fire will lead to their death. The inventions become uncontrollable by the creators. That was happened in Chernobyl. They didn't take any precautions because they didn't know this small fire will lead to their death. The next day, 7 o'clock, she heard that Wesley was in hospital. With the help of a friend, she got a chance to meet him. He was all swollen up and the eyes were not visible. The doctor recommended to give milk for all the affected people. At that time, she remembers that Vasily didn't like milk. At that time, many people were also died. The next day, the entry was restricted and she begged to see him. When she reached, the doctor asked her, "Do you have kids?" She knows that if she say she is pregnant, then the doctor will never allow to see him. The central nervous system of Vasily was completely compromised. They restricted her from hugging and kissing Vasily. She was not ready to leave the hospital after seeing him. She gave birth to a girl named Nadashenka, but she had cirrhosis of liver and she also dead. At last, she says people have serious health issues and then they are not bothered about their sudden death happens to them. The story ends with her words. She was telling about love and about her love.